Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Conor McGilligan. Leeds United have lost at the Emirates 5-0. And you'll probably tell by my just face and general demeanor here. I'm just kind of like that I was kind of beaten down after the 34th minute, really, there. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, everybody. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this match reaction. Thank you for the last Everton match reaction. I think we got up to 28,000 views, which was amazing. And yeah, appreciate everybody who came along on the watch along. We had a bit of a laugh. Obviously, we delved into some of the tactical aspects. And I do have to say, everybody, if you're not really into this sort of stuff, if you just want me to come on here and say that Leeds are great and fantastic and we were expected to come here and just get mullered and etc., I would suggest very, very politely to get yourself off this video. That's what I would say. I don't want you to tune in if you're going to deem this as negative or whatever. And I'm letting you know right now. Okay, so we'll give you 3, 2, 1, goodbye. Yeah, no, listen, it's not to be negative. Let's look at the overall pie here. Are Leeds United likely going to go down to Arsenal and pick up all 3 points? It is highly unlikely, massively unlikely. The Gunners are a side of which are fraught, fluid, dynamic, strong, excellent on set pieces. And they have now scored 33 set pieces, I believe, since it might have been like 2024, or there's some statistic which was crazy. Second was Liverpool on 20. So we've got done again twice today. There's no shame in that. I didn't like the setup for them. I didn't like the fact that Timber is in between Struijk and Rodon, but just this system they seem to have just gets the best of every single team. And we're not going to work chronologically here, really. We're probably going to bat from side to side when it comes to just the way this game panned out. I think Daniel Farke got it wrong today. Ultimately got it really wrong. We were talking a lot in the watch along, and this isn't a hindsight thing. I think you go to Arsenal, you make it difficult, you start your best box defenders, of which I'm a huge fan of Pascal Struijk, as you guys know, and I get a lot of criticism for that sometimes. I think Pascal Struijk is an excellent defender. But I think when you look at the duels, you look at the traditional defender that Jacobiol is, you look at the fact that he wasn't injured. He was just out because of a suspension reason. And you look at the fact that we brought him in for 20 million quid as our statement centre-back signing. He was our first signing and one of our marquees, technically. 6'4", a brute in the air. He's used to low blocks at Udinese in Serie A and Slovenia that he proved at Euro 2024 when he was excellent. Used to this. So I thought a lot of balls were going to come into the box when it comes to set pieces. He was up there when it came to Serie A defenders, winning headers last season as well. When you look at his stats per 90, I thought you had to start him in this game. I love Pascal Struijk's fluidity, his ability to pass out from the back and find men, but I think that can work for certain games. In games like this against Arsenal, when you're not passing out from the back, when you're not trying to play between the lines, when you are just difficult to beat, you frustrate the big teams as much as you can, restrict them from open play, and you dig in. And I thought Jacobiol should have started this game because I thought it was the perfect style of game for him. That didn't happen. Then you look at the midfield, okay? Now, and you look at that the style of Leeds going into it as well, and you look at the defense, and for 34 minutes we were fine. I thought they were coming forward a heck of a lot. I thought they were breaking the lines a lot, and yes, they hadn't scored, but it felt like they were getting closer at points, just an edge off it when it came to Madueke. You know, Odegaard maybe just missing out on a pass, and I felt they were coming at some stage. Arsenal, they really were. So overall, you look at the midfield and you look at the lineup, which you can see on screen here. And what's quite startling here when you look at it is obviously Eli Gruev played the full 90. Now you look at this was pulled in from a stat pack, and this is exactly how Leeds United set up in the game. Now what you're looking at here is a direct replacement from Eli Gruev to Ethan Ampadu. Ethan Ampadu is a much better ball progressor. He's got variance in his play. He's got short to mid to long range passing, of which is decent. Sometimes he can overcommit in certain situations, but I think on the ball, he's very, very decent, Ethan Ampadu. And I've always felt that he was quite underrated. Now, what Farke has done in this game is Leeds are trying to build up vertically, which was evident from moment one. So we're trying to build up from the back against some of the best pressers in world football. World football. An excellent almost box press in Leeds' half, where there can be 4 players on Leeds' central players every single time, and they press very, very high out wide. So what you're trying to do is if you're building out from the back in a single pivot, it's so important, so important. And we saw that versus Everton, but styles make fights, right? It's what we say on the channel all the time. But Eli Gruev building up from the base of midfield will never work. That's Farke's got that wrong. He's got that wrong. And I'm going to tell you why from my perspective when we go to the solutions of what I thought we should at the start. You know, that's that by the by, whatever. But for someone who struggles to build up progressively, in my opinion. For someone who actually struggles to build up vertically, which is the whole idea of Daniel Farke's build up from the back, I don't think he should have been in there. I think Leeds should have gone for a different style today, but building out from the back was evidently what the manager wanted to do. Hence why he started Strauch, in my opinion. Hence why he started Alai Gruev. But that was the complete wrong matchup because Gruev cannot build between the lines because he's a lateral defender. In my opinion, he will choose to go backwards. And a simple thing for a midfielder, he doesn't scan enough. Doesn't scan enough over both shoulders. Doesn't do it. So the easy thing for Gruev consistently, and it's not to go in on Gruev, it's just how he is as a footballer. It's how he is as a footballer. It's not to go in on him whatsoever. I think Gruev should be utilized off the bench, maybe when we're trying to shore up games. Okay. So there's a style of Eli Gruev, in my opinion, where he should start and where he shouldn't start. In a game today where the midfield is so heavy, so consistently good, and so pressy, he's not press resistant. So he's always going to get the ball robbed off him, which happened for some of the goals of which we saw. Okay. It was so obvious that was going to happen. So in a single pivot, you build it up through Gruev. Now, what you could have done is maybe put the better ball player in that single pivot. So we saw Tanaka do it last season all the time. Much better scanner, much better on the back foot with either with his left or his right, and he can distribute his passing in various ways. It's just not always lateral or backwards. Anton Stack, I think he's a very good scanner. I think he can even progress the ball as well. But if you wanted him as an out-and-out six, which he played last season in the Bundesliga at points as well, that's absolutely fine. We were talking at the very start about Anton Stack being in a double pivot with him and Ampadu, right? So that would have been absolutely fine as well. And he's a traditional number six as well. We all know that. But putting Gruev at the pivot, at the base of a midfield to build up through him was always going to be cataclysmic for Leeds United, especially when he's directly up against their attacking presence in Martin Odegaard. Always going to be a problem. Okay, so then you go through the team and then you look at what Leeds were doing throughout the game. Okay, now I kept mentioning on the watch long that you go into a sword fight with a butter knife. Okay, were we ever going to beat Arsenal? This is the context. Were we ever going to beat them? Highly likely, no. But did we show them a little bit too much respect? I think so. Did we show them a little bit of you have the ball, we'll stay in our block, even if they're sort of getting between the lines, they're able to get in these half spaces, and ultimately they're winning. Were they able to do that and really capitalize? Of course they were, numerous times. Okay. But actually, from open play, I thought for the general game, Leeds were okay. For the general game, Leeds were okay. They scored 2 from set pieces, of which, it's Arsenal and set pieces. They got a penalty. At one stage, they'd had 4 shots on target, scored 4 goals. Overall, they weren't amazing from open play. We restricted them to a certain extent. But the issue is when Leeds couldn't play out from the back, Perry, we know his strong point, and we'll get into Perry in a little bit, but his strong point isn't playing out from the back. We all know that. You could see that in the Everton game. So don't put the onus on him to play out from the back. And you're seeing the lead centre-backs go into Perry, so they're playing it to him. He's playing it out to the right-hand side and the left-hand side, and Leeds are trying to build out from the back. Now, we nearly got caught early on, and Gyökeres put the ball wide, and it was the exact same situation which happened with Manchester City earlier on today when Tottenham caught them out, and Tottenham kept catching them out. Now, if that's happening to Manchester City at home against Tottenham Hotspur, us playing out from the back against Arsenal probably isn't the best idea. So evidently we were trying to do that, and Perry would get to a stage where he had no option, so he would go long. Now, on the watch-along chat, we counted in that first half, Leeds United from Perry went long 8 times, okay? Peru won 1 of those. But we all know that, and I'm not blaming Joel Peru for that. Stylistically, it's not his game. Joel Peru is not a physical attacker who's going to hold the ball up, win free kicks. He'll always try stay up, which is really great from Peru. I think that's a really good level of sort of honor in the game. Not sort of utilizing gamesmanship, but that is part of it. It's going down, trying to buy free kicks, trying to buy Leeds time, and Peru won 1 in that first half when it came to the balls up against Saliba and Gabriel. But we all knew that, right? We all knew that. So this is what I keep saying with the bread knife, going to a sword fight. We weren't ever going to win the game. The likelihood is we wouldn't have won the game anyway. So please hear me. No selective hearing here, but you can at least go into the game tactically, giving yourself a little bit of a chance. And playing out from the back against Arsenal signaled to me, was this overall the worst thing? Of course it wasn't. You're looking at my temperament now. I'm not like boiling over. I'm not crying at this. It's not symptomatic of Leeds getting relegated. These things are going to happen. We've said pre-season that you're going to get battered at points. But my major worry is that he might not adapt and he might not be pragmatic, because I thought today it's pretty obvious what he'll do. And I believed he would do this. I genuinely believed he'd have Perry in there, he'd have the proper box defender in Biorb in there with Rodon, two excellent headers of the ball when the balls are going to be coming into either Havertz, who might have been playing, or Gyökeres, and Leeds United will be able to marshal it, stay compact as a four, and Perry just in behind. Put someone in the six, maybe a stack. I genuinely thought it'd be a stack, probably in that number six, of which he's played for Hoffenheim and done very, very well. Been in the top upper echelon when he's been playing in that single/double pivot for Hoffenheim. I thought that would happen, but instead he's done it a completely different way. And I think Farke set up in a really poor way there. That's my personal perspective. And when you've got Peru up front and you're asking Joel Peru to battle against Saliba, and you're asking him to battle against Gabriel, it's never going to happen. Now, what I think frustrated me the most actually was when Mecha came on. And like in the Everton game, where you saw a massive difference, as soon as he came on in the Everton game, came on, absolutely barreled Tarkowski out the way. As soon as the ball was getting to him, in that game, in that second half, I thought he was, I mean, look, the game was gone, of course it was, but the amount of times he was barreling Saliba out the way, Gabriel holding the ball up well, won 2 free kicks for Leeds United in one in our half, one in their half. You know, link play really well. Didn't get on the ball a lot, but when he got on the ball, he looked bright. And he was a physical presence, a real physical presence up against those two. And they looked more worried when he came onto the pitch. And Leeds were able to get into the opposition half so much more. I know the game state was different. You know, Max Dowman was on. Martin Odegaard was off. Saka was off. Trossard had just come on. The game state was different. But when you're looking at Leeds United, we were able to hold the ball in their half a lot more. Now, the problem is when you set up to build out from the back against Arsenal, they're going to press you high. They know they've got better players, and they're going to punish you with the recoveries in the final third. He's got to learn. You cannot do that. You know, I mentioned this on the watch long. If we're going into every single game thinking, well, we'll beat Burnley, we'll beat Sunderland, because Sunderland would have thought that about Burnley today, by the way. Bear that in mind. We'll beat Sunderland, Burnley, Wolves, Brentford, bam, 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 and we'll lose to bam, 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 bam. But that's not how football works. There might have to be an outlier, because Leeds might lose to a Burnley. So you might need to be or get a draw, you know, a couple of draws against some of the teams that you didn't expect to do. So you can't go into games just thinking, well, we're going to get beat today. No point. No point in him turning up. You know, might just have a bye, you know? And I think you've just always, I go into games with hope all the time. I'll come on here and I'll say, look, I mean, I predicted the other day it'd be 3-0 anyway. But I come into these games, I think to myself, do you know what? There's a little bit of hope there. There is. And I get into these games, you get to the 34th minute and you think, here we go. You know, we're restricting them quite a bit. The build-up play is still shocking, but we're somehow in this game still. They're not really doing much. I didn't think Arsenal were great today. With the utmost respect, I didn't think they were great today. I didn't, but they didn't have to be great. And thank God they weren't great. But I think overall there was a way to set up. I don't think he got that right today. I don't think he got that right, and he has to learn in the Premier League, because ultimately, guys, as well, we've got everything to prove as Leeds United, of course, but so has the manager. The manager's got everything to prove, because he's not proven himself as that Premier League manager yet. And to be a Premier League manager, you have to adapt. One of the biggest, I've listened to a lot of managers, sort of like the coaching voices and stuff like that, and there's been a lot of learnings. And this isn't to say Farke hasn't done this, but today just worried me in terms of that adaptation going forward. Against certain teams, you know, you might play your Aston Villas, your Newcastles, you might have to adapt. But if he's not going to do that, you listen to just your Chris Wilders, you listen to your Russell Martins, you listen to your Thomas Frank, just people who've learned things like over time and just said, look, I wish I'd have done this, or this is what we would do if we had it this time. Or in Thomas Frank's case, this is what you have to do to stay up. And you almost have to just like trap that ego. Leeds are a brilliant team. Leeds have been a brilliant team last season. But can you always build out from the back? Can you always fashion chances through building out from the back and playing wonderful football? It's probably not going to happen. And we know that's not going to happen in the Premier League. So I think my worry just taken away from that is it's not the Arsenal game. It's not the fact that we've got beaten 5-0, albeit I think we could have gone into it a little bit better. It's the fact that the pragmatism and the adaptation hasn't been there in this game, of which it was crying out for pragmatism/adaptation, because you're going up against a team who are just going to kill you if you're trying to play out from the back. And that's what they did at points. You know, we saw that immediately when we were trying to build out at the front through Gruev, who gave the ball away. Gyökeres had a shot on goal. Okay. Immediately. So I think there should have been a change. There wasn't. It carried on. So he does have to learn. Now, this is an emotional rant. This isn't me being reactive. This is just a general conversation. On this channel, we promote discourse, debate, and discussion. The guidelines are on the channel that is respectful. If you've got an opinion, you've got an opinion. Of course you have. But the overall point, 'cause I know there's going to be so many people who are in this comment section tomorrow and they're going to be saying it across the way. We're expected to lose levels, all this sort of stuff, this terminology of which basically instigates that you go into these games just expecting to lose. I don't go into games. I know maybe it's not realism and I know it's not the expectation sometimes, but you get to, you know, both players on either side of the pitch at the start of the game. You think, do you know what? We've got a chance here. Yeah, we've got a chance. We've caused upsets before. You know, if you sit in, we've got the personnel to sit in right now. That's been the recruitment drive to get senior players in, players who defensively are very aware. We've done well in that department, and also to be compact and difficult to beat. We've seen that in preseason. We saw that against Everton. So can we do that again? And this is kind of what we're getting into right now, everybody. So let's have a quick look at what you guys are saying in the comment section below. Let's see how many of you are in the building. Let's see if you agree, you disagree. Let's see. We've got 1,000 of you in the building, everybody. Please make sure you're slapping a like on the video. And let's see what you guys are saying. Let's have a quick sip. Tom Rush, I understand what everyone's frustration would be. Tom, because I knew this would happen, mate. And this will happen continuously, you know. But the thing is, Tom, all of these teams in the Premier League have spent way more money than us, and that goes all the way to Forest. It goes Brentford. It goes Wolves. These have all spent way more money, way levels ahead of Leeds United, if you want to use that term again. So we can't just keep saying that. You've got to bloody the nose of some of these teams, you know. John says, here we go, Connor. Everybody thinking we're going to be the equal of the Premier League clubs, and we've only spent 3 years out of the last 20. Okay. We're going to keep this really short. We deserve to get beat. Everyone's got unrealistic expectations. Don't set up in any certain way. Everything's fine. I'm just going to start being petulant with it. It's just selective hearing, isn't it? I understand. And that's why in that monologue there, mate, I've tried to say, I understand what people are saying. I completely get it. It's more of the adaptation, the pragmatism. That's where I get a little bit more worried about if he's going to ever go from a plan A to a plan B. You've got to adapt. You've got to change. You've got to be stringent. You've got to be really detailed in these aspects. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I was saying at the start. We've got something to prove as a team, but Daniel Farke also has something to prove. Let's not get too sensitive about Daniel Farke here, everybody. Okay? I'm not saying Daniel Farke's a bad manager. I'm not saying Daniel Farke out. None of that is being said. It's not overreaction. It's not emotional led. We are looking at how the team set up today, and did that team give us the best chance of winning that game? Ultimately, I don't think it did. That's the conversation. Let's have a look. I give 5 games and see where we're at. Farke's press conference acknowledged future games of focus. Maybe this is a way of us playing a tactic we need to know for the future. So we've got to try it out and learn against the top side. That's what you've got to take away from this. That's what you've got to take away from this. You just got to take away that they've learned from this. They've got slapped here. They go into Newcastle and they think to themselves, do you know what? We've got to adapt. Yeah. Ultimately, we've got to adapt because you've got to adapt because a lot of people are talking about £1 billion squads. Aston Villa, Newcastle, go all the way down. Brighton, the investment they've made in their squad. Bournemouth over the past 3 years. Brentford, West Ham. These are all massively inflated expenditure output squads. All of them. All of them. But at some point, if you want to stay in the Premier League, this is why it's such a tough task. You've got to beat them. You've got to beat some of them, you know? So it can't always be the excuse of where you look at, and I understand why it makes sense quantitatively, that metric being used. And I get it. You know, you invest in a business, you invest more money into a business, and that business is probably going to overperform. And if you've spent less on a business, it's not going to perform at the same level as this business. But this is just the world we're living in right now. If you want to stay in the Premier League, you've got to adapt. You've got to be pragmatic. You've got to set up against certain teams in certain ways. Otherwise, we will go down. Old Git, that is just completely untrue, mate, because we've just flashed up 2 comments, of which are are my other opinion, are contrary opinions, or other opinions, I should say. A lot of basics not done today. Beaten by the better team, 100%. Got no issues in losing to the so-called Big Six, but it's the manner. Hi grass. If we'd gone big lads and play hard to beat, then lost, you can accept it. Yeah. 1,000 in here, slap the likes, people. Reality check. Tactically inept, says Mark Fisher. Too much respect given. Dodgy keeper. Quite a few more days like this one on the horizon, I'm afraid. Lucas says, I do believe that there was major positives to take from the game, with us only conceding 2 goals from open play, making it difficult for Arsenal to break down during the first half. Yeah, that's something I'd take out for it. High grass, how's it going? Connor, it could be worse, mate. You could support a team from Sheffield propping up the championship. That is true. This is why I wanted Farke fired in the summer, and plus Ramazani. You can't play Peru and Gruev at this level. Look, and this will shock a lot of you, because unfortunately we have like childlike narrative sometimes in the space where it's very much like Farke in or Farke out. And this will surprise you, because Farke's lost 5-0 to Arsenal today. I don't want Daniel Farke out. That is not what I want. I think it's more of a look ahead at how we can adapt, how he can adapt, and how he can mold into a plan B at points, of which Leeds United will need to stay up. Personally, right now, I want Farke to be in the job. I want there to be continuity. I would love Farke to be in the job 2 years down the line, and for him to be a much more established manager, of him to have developed, and for him to be at a level of which you can kind of look at him and say, yeah, my manager can do this. We all want continuity when it comes to the manager. You do not want to be chopping and changing the Premier League, because that does not have a great rap sheet in terms of success. You do not want that. You want continuity. You want momentum. Of course you do. That's what we all want. We all want an Unai Emery. We all want an Iriola. We all want that consistency, you know? And success, relative success, of course we do. But at this level, there has to be a notion of adapting. All the other teams, and as I've said, everybody, Brentford, who've been a massively successful team in the Premier League, relative wise, you go and listen to Thomas Frank's success planning in terms of staying in the Premier League for as long as they have done. The blueprint is there. It's there, you know? And you're not going to get judged on it today. You're not going to get judged on it today, of course. It more is the adaptation, the pragmatism, certain players going in for certain states. But for me, what I would be doing going into the Newcastle game, I'll be playing Beale at the back, because I think it's going to be really tough as well. Yet again, I think Leeds have got to be pragmatic going into that game. In the midfield, I'll be putting Stack or Tanaka, but probably Stack. In fact, no, Tanaka. Tanaka at the base of the midfield, and then I will be putting Stack and Longstaff as runners. That's what I'll be putting. And Stack, obviously, maybe just playing in between the 6 and the 8. You know, playing in between Tanaka and Longstaff. I would start Longstaff in that game. Obviously, Ethan Ampadu isn't part of that part of proceedings today to be building up from the base of our midfield, which I think Ethan's fantastic at. We've not seen anywhere near enough of it. But that's what I would be doing. I would be putting Stack and Longstaff as the runners effectively off Al Tanaka at the base. Al Tanaka is a better base builder-upper than Gruev. He's a much better technical footballer, much better footballer overall. And if you are insistent on building out from the back, you have to do that. And if Farke is insistent on doing that, he has to have Tanaka at the base of the midfield, in my opinion. Has to. Because you've got to have Stack, you've got to have Longstaff in the midfield to compete with Tenali and Gamaresh. You've got to do that. And then up front to compete with Dan Burn or Sven Botman or Shah with a physical back line, I think you have to start Mecha. I would be starting Mecha, and I would be starting DCL at the very beginning of every one of our games, one or the other. And then, as I said, right at the very beginning, the 19 goals in the championship for Peru, for me, it's not something that I have in my head, because now we're now a Premier League side, as we've seen today. And when you're coming up against teams like we are today, and that's regular, that's often, styles make fights. I always say this. And with Mecha and DCL, there's a reason we brought them in. Age-wise, profile-wise, overall, being able to hold the ball up, win free kicks in the opposition half, but ultimately score in our formation. You know, in a 4-3-3 formation, really profit from pacey wingers, creative wingers, you know, putting the ball into the box and being able to really galvanize and kickstart your Leeds career from that. I think what I've seen of Mecha, I've been really impressed with him. That's a positive again to take away from today, you know, a positive to take away. You've had Mecha come in. You've had him, in my opinion, in 2 performances. As soon as he came on against Everton, first thing he did, went straight into Tarkowski. Loved it. That is exactly the notion, exactly what you need. People are talking about Ellen Road being a fortress. Okay. Ellen Road being a fortress, you make it a fortress by seeing things like that as well. I know it's not measurable. I know it's not quantitative, but these are the immeasurable things of which keep you in the Premier League. Not just him obviously bashing into a centre back, but him competing, in being physical, not being respectful. It was too respectful today, way too respectful today. And it's not Peru's game. But problem is in the Premier League right now, every backline is becoming like that. And this is why it's going to be tough for Joel Peru this season. But for me, going forward, you all want like what I would do, or some of you do anyway. Beal starts. He is the ceiling raiser. The base of the pivot has to be Al Tanaka, especially if he wants to build out from the back, and you have to put Metra up top. But I think even if you're playing long football or whatever, direct football, Metra has to start up top, and Tanaka has to start at the base for midfield to get things ticking anyway. And Beal has to be in there. Beal has to be in there. Is that ceiling raiser for me. So I think there's a way out of this for Leeds. I thought Goodmanson, weirdly, I thought he played well. I thought the two centre backs struggled a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I thought they struggled a little bit. I thought Stack actually had a better game than people are giving him credit for. I don't think he was protected at all by the other midfielders and given anything. I thought Tanaka played well when it came to a press as well. I thought they both did. I thought pressing. I actually thought Stack and Tanaka were better than probably a lot of people thought. I genuinely did. I thought they were sort of as a balance between, and I'm not just putting it all on Gruev. I'm really not, guys. That's unfair. But I don't think the balance of that midfield worked well, but I thought the press that Tanaka was putting on the spare centre-back was really good, and on Zubamendi in the first half. And I thought Stack was the only ball carrier we had in that entire team today. Going forward, actually, Brendan Aronson's impact off the bench, I thought was reasonably good, apart from that first pass away. Mecha was really impressed with him again. I think he's come in with a point to prove with all of his injuries, and I think he's been really impressive so far. No Okafor, a few nice touches as well. Didn't really get into the game. There was a step over of which he lost. And it kind of went off his back foot. But I thought there was signs that, he's ready to be direct. He's ready to hit the byline, and he's ready to invert as well. So there's a little bit of difference and variance in there. So I like that. So there's bits today of which, believe it or not, in a 5-0 defeat, I saw and I thought to myself, yeah, all right, okay, we can work with stuff there. We've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin to come into the side at some point, which hopefully will be against Newcastle, which will be a massive boost. We've got Jakob Biol coming in. Biol is a ceiling raiser. He's the best centre-back at the club. Biol has to start. He has to start, and that has to be a thing that happens. And when Ampadu's out, someone who can actually play at the base of a single pivot by himself, because he's so good at short to mid to long-term distribution, there can never be a situation in the Premier League again, if we are building up vertically, where Elia Gruev is given the instruction, he's given the keys to the machine. No way. No way in vertical build-up. It cannot happen. He's too restricted. Let's get into a few of your comments as well. Darwin, not yet for me, mate. After 1-0, we were shocking. Farke got it so wrong. Let's have a quick look at what some more of you guys are saying as well. Please get your comments in, everybody. Really appreciate some of the donations as well. Ricky says, I think we'll move the ball around too slow, as if we're still playing in the Championship, but only one game. That Arsenal team together have been. Yeah, I just thought Arsenal were pretty average. I just thought they were pretty average today, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. And people will say it's 5-0, Connor. But I think, yeah. Really, draw a line through today. Let's be honest, we're never getting anything here. Newcastle at home next. Let's get a point there. And who would argue with 4 points from the first 3 games? Yeah, I agree. Grey Wise says, yes, Connor, that's exactly what I would do. And I would have done the exact same today. 100% agree with you. Yeah, mate, not many people do, but thank you. Tiger says, obvious problem early on was Arsenal were too good for us to play out from the back. But when we went long, we had no one to hit, so kept turning over possession cheaply, and it was a matter of time. Exactly. And that's the thing, Tiger. It's like, at that point, do the Marcelo Bielsa. Yeah. You made a mistake. Do the Bielsa. Mecha on. Longstaff on as a runner. Off Mecha. And I think that would have caused them more problems than we believe. There's too much. I think there's too much like respect in the chat as well. We know how good Arsenal are. They weren't that great today. They weren't good in the first game of the season either. I think there was opportunities for us today. Genuinely. They were good. They grew into it a little bit more. Of course, there was phases, but I didn't look at them today and go, wow. Oh, wow. I mentioned this in the watch along. When we used to play City and Liverpool in the Premier League, when we played Liverpool at Ellen Road and Liverpool beat us 3-0, when they had Mane, Salah on either side and Firmino through the middle, that could have been 10 and should have been 10. We couldn't touch the ball. Could not touch the ball. When City beat us 4-0 at home, when they beat us 7 at Ellen Road, when they beat us 7-0 at the Etihad, we couldn't touch the ball. Miles ahead of us. This Arsenal team today, they were okay today. Didn't create that many chances through open play. 4 shots on target. This is the whole point. You set up in a certain way. there could have been a little avenue for their Leeds today. A little avenue for Leeds there today. You know? Let's talk about Perry as well. Look, it's not it's not a great start. It's not a great start for Lucas Perry. And I think this, I guess, again, is the onus on the old build out from the back, because you're building out from the back with Lucas Perry, who we all know transitionally is better on a counter attack if he's throwing the ball out. If he's throwing the ball out, that's where Lucas Perry, that's where he's better, isn't it? Where he's throwing it out. We've seen that with Leon. It's not about his kicking. His kicking isn't great. We've heard that from Leon fans as well. We've heard that from, from Get French Football News and all this sort of stuff. His kicking's not his main attribute, but he doesn't need kicking, because when he's throwing on that transition, on that counter attack, they're effective. Okay. So for me, when you're looking at that overall, you don't put the onus on him playing out from the back. Unless it's like short passing to Rodon and short passing to Stroud, you don't put the onus on him, okay? And there was too much onus on him there. And when you do go direct, you hit a man who can win a ball in the final third, not a man who doesn't compete with centre-backs. So you just don't do that. So, yeah, Perry wasn't great today. I think he got Leeds' lowest rating, and I would agree with that. The rating of Goodmanson, I don't agree with at all. I thought Goodmanson was pretty okay today. I think he had the hardest task against Saka for 70 minutes. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat about Perry. I didn't think he was great, but what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't be really reactive right now and turn around and say, get him out, because you don't want to be changing your goalkeeper. You change your goalkeeper right now, and it sends out such a message. And I think it's way too reactionary to get rid of your goalkeeper right now. But your style of play cannot start with your goalkeeper like that all the time against better teams, because he will get exposed more and more often. That will happen. Someone who is an interesting topic of conversation as well is, when you're looking at DJ is interesting, because the first two games of which have been in the Premier League, if we are building out from the back and DJ is having to drag himself back almost to the halfway line to get the ball to then run at the fullback, I think that's maybe where DJ's weaknesses will be a little bit more exposed, because the ball over the top, listen, when he's fronted up a championship fullback, he'll just get the ball and knock it around them. Absolutely fine. They'll get multiple opportunities when Leeds are dominant in possession to do that. But when you're not dominant in possession, and when you're facing up a fullback who these are the best fullbacks in the world, we're all aware of this, especially 1v1. I don't really like the notion of DJ having to come back to then have to effectively beat his man or invert. I don't like that as much. I think there's a better protector of the ball and someone who can get us up the pitch a little bit more and win free kicks a little bit more. And I think that is Nonso. Okafor, I mentioned right at the very beginning of us signing him that I was very 50-50, and I just have to see him in terms of his physical readiness. Is he going to be decent on the ball in the Premier League? You can obviously be decent in that league, but can you be decent with it as an almost ready-made sure thing when you've had a season of which hasn't really been consistent? Today, when you look at Okafor, you think to yourself, obviously they need help in that front line. I think someone like Delane Backward coming in would be a decent sign, a decent help to Leeds' his front three. But I think you need protectors of the ball. You need protectors of the ball, and you need players to make the correct decisions a lot of the time when you're trying to get Leeds up the pitch. Okay, when you're trying to support Lucas Mecha, I think you need players who make the correct decisions. I think Dan James, there's certain games where he needs to be used as well. And I'm one of DJ's biggest fans. I was actually saying I'd rather start him ahead of Nonso. I think these first couple of games, I'm thinking to myself, can he protect the ball like we need him to protect the ball? And can he make the right decisions at the right times, which is so important for Leeds United to not be hurt on transition by these top teams. I think Willie Nonso is a better technical footballer. And I think Willie's probably better at winning free kicks. And I like the combination in preseason between Nonso and Bogle. I think the spacing was shorter between them. I think it was a lot narrower, which meant that the sequences, combinations, and build-ups were a lot more seamless. I think DJ naturally likes to do that with Bogle. And I think that in the Premier League is a problem, because you can interrupt that ball and hit teams on the transition. So I would be very tempted next week as well to start Nonto on the right and Okafor on that other side as well, and Mecha through the middle. I'd be tempted to do that. But obviously it depends on Leeds' business as well. So Ruben says, All this talk about from Farke about additions, yet still doesn't play. He keeps sticking to the same lads. His squad selection and adaptability is a concern. Cheers to the donation, mate. And I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, 100%. Connor, you're not harsh enough on the manager. It was crap today. Nothing made sense. Look, dude, Cal, I can't win, mate. I can't win because what will happen now is I'm very, as Simon Jordan says, the courage of your conviction. So I'll always come on here and be honest. I'm not going to come on here and say Daniel Farke should be sacked. And some people don't like that because some people want you to say I'm Farke in or Farke out. Some people don't like the fact that maybe you're in the middle. You can see both sides to it. They don't like the balance. They want you to come out and say it so they can nail you. When maybe things go against what you're saying. That's what they want to do. But this is my genuine opinion. I want continuity. I want consistency. The overarching fact is you cannot sack Daniel Farke after losing to Arsenal. That is absolute nonsense. What we do know about Daniel Farke overall is setting up a game. We all know he likes to build up from the back. There was a few nuances from his press conference where I was thinking to myself, is he going to adapt in this game? And then I saw the lineup today and I thought, he's got this all wrong. We said this on the Patreon group chat. Beginning of the game, some of the lads were trying to be optimistic about it and saying we could play route one with that lineup. I was saying there's no way. There's no way. We've never seen any evidence of it. We have to have evidence. Point evidence explanation. Has this ever worked before with Peru holding the ball up if we're going route one? It's never happened. And it's because Leeds don't play that way as well. Has it ever worked with Gruev being like effectively a single pivot and building up through him vertically? That's never worked. It's never worked because he's never had that sole operation. And Purdue has because he's got a variance in his midfield play. Beale was a bit of a confusing one. I thought he'd be in today. I thought that made a lot of sense with the low block defending. But yeah, overall, I don't want to. I think Farke got it wrong today, but I don't know what. I don't know what you guys want me to say. Do you want me to come out here and say like, sack the guy? I don't think we should. I want consistency. I want there to be a manager at the helm for Leeds United throughout the Premier League campaign, and I'm not going to judge Leeds too heavily on losing to Arsenal. The manner of the defeat, I do think, is down to the manager, though. I think the manager had a chance in the game to adapt. I don't think he did it. I think before the game, the lineup was wrong. I think it was wrong. I think likelihood is would have still lost. It's Arsenal, and as everybody will tell me in the comment section afterwards, it's Arsenal, for God's sake, Connor, stop being emotional. Give your head a shake. This will happen consistently in the next coming days. But it's not throwing, it's not throwing shade and overreacting or anything. You can tell that, guys, and you guys are all very similar in the comment section below as well. But there's a way to set up. And I've said from the Everton game onwards, I would have started with the Metro up until the Newcastle game. And then if DCL's there, and he can come in against Fulham and Wolves. But Peru wasn't in my thought process. Wasn't in my thought process at all. Stylistically. You kind of look at the makeup and you look at what we could have been facing. So it was Jake O'Brien, Tarkowski, and Jared Branthwaite. Branthwaite's out 6 weeks, so that didn't happen. So you're still coming up against O'Brien, Tarkowski, whoever else was in there, Michael Keane. Then you're looking at today, Gabriel Saliba, and you're looking at next week, Fabian Schär, Botman, Dan Burn. You can't play Peru there. You just can't do it. And they're going to press on your back line as well, Newcastle, because they're relentless pressers. So it's going to be similar but different to next week. And he's got to learn these things. He's got to do. Go get yourself a beer, lad. You deserve it, mate. Cheers, Mark. Smack of reality today. Connor, you spot on with your pre-match analysis. Always agree with you, to be fair. Thanks, buddy. But yeah. Listen, it is what it is. It is what it is. People need to go get a grip. Arsenal. See what I mean, guys? And it's fine. It's fine. But it's a very easy thing to say all the time. Overreacting, emotional. Arsenal are way above us. We couldn't have done anything. We bent over and took it, and that's all we could have done. That's the analysis. Is Willie actually good enough for this league, Con? I think so, mate. DJ gets a long contract. Surely there's a player that I had no idea. Yeah, 100%. Farke is tactically inept and stubborn and will be gone before Christmas. Jay says, bringing quality players in the following positions. Another quality CDM that can compete with Ampadu. Grove is not the answer. Another left back and right back, another quality striker addition as well. Let's have a look. Now I finally understand why Pai Zhao didn't want to sign for us. Defo need to invest in some players if we want to stay up. Can't bank on what they've said. Patrick says, so we blame Perry now. The defense was Conference League standard, not Perry's fault. No, it's not. It's not blaming Perry at all. I mean, I think we should stick with him. I think he should have got down a little bit better to that Gyökeres one. I think Strout was at fault there for not engaging quicker enough as well. I thought the set pieces were pretty poor, if I'm honest. I thought they were pretty poor, but Arsenal are so good at them, and they've got it so fine tuned that what happens. I mean, they took 2 corners and scored 2 corners, is that right? Or 3 corners and scored 2 of them. It seems like no team can. Arteta's got that absolutely nailed, hasn't he? So yeah. Metro start versus Newcastle. Yeah, man, I agree. Baz says Farke has delusions of grandeur. He needs to wake up and get a plan B. Yeah. I'm glad we have got the game out the way. Hopefully, Farke learns this. Yeah, that's what he's got to do. That's what we've got to take out of this, everybody. There's got to be a learning from Farke, and we're all learning as individuals every single day. But the gaffer has got to learn from this. I think that's unequivocally clear. But this, I think, yeah. What I'd say is, I don't think we can. Okay, well, how interesting is this? Okay, I'm going to show you something. I find this quite interesting. We're going to just put it on screen now. Very interesting. Didn't expect this from. Don't know if anybody's seeing this. Shout out to the Leeds press. What do you guys think about that? I didn't hear a lot of the commentary today because we were doing the watch along. I think he's spot on. I thought the dynamic when Okafor and Mecha came on, it's game state as well, of course it is. It's game state. But I tell you what, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Runner off Mecha in terms of long staff, 6'2" as well, helps with set pieces. Mecha definitely helps with set pieces as well because he's a really good header of the ball, good perceptiveness as well when it comes to where the ball's going to bounce, in my opinion. I think he's very, very good at interpreting that. Good in the air. You can tell already. He's very good in the duels. And Beal, 6'4", one of the best headers of the ball in Italy. We're all very aware of how traditional he is. I think Neville's spot on. He's absolutely spot on there. And this, hopefully, as we've just said, is a bit of a learning. But what my key takeaway would be, everybody, my key takeaway would be we don't expect to beat Arsenal. And I want everybody to listen to this. I'm going to turn the dial up, right? We don't expect to beat Arsenal, but you've got to set up with the best tools you can put on that pitch to ultimately get something from it. Whether or not that's a scrappy 1-1. Where have they gone against the big teams? Can you not get a scrappy 1-1 anymore? A little 0-0? Because for 34 minutes, there was a lot of people in our chat going, Connor, we could do this. And I said, there's going to have to be changes. But that isn't what it's going to be, everybody. The likelihood is we're never going to get something from this. And it's not the result. Nobody gives a shit about the result. We're always going to lose to Arsenal. But in many worlds, if you frustrate Arsenal, and Arsenal fans in the chat, Arsenal fans messaging me throughout the game saying they weren't great. A very prominent YouTuber saying to me, we're playing shit here. I quote verbatim. So it's not the result. It's the setup and then the performance, of which I thought had way too much respect in it. Way too much respect. Put the best tools on the pitch in certain games for me. Yeah. Okay. See what you guys saying again. I need to start changing my thumbnails and stuff now, don't I? All the thumbnails need to be changed. Okay. John, I've just agreed with what you said, mate. Yeah, I've agreed with what you said. Yeah. Okay. Right, guys. Listen, I'm going to leave it there. We're going to be back with the 5 things tomorrow. If you've agreed, let me know in the comment section below. Listen, keep it respectful. All right. Keep it always respectful in the chat. Do yourselves a credit. If you're annoyed, you're frustrated, don't take it out on the chat. Okay. Be respectful. Comment section below after the video. Please let me know your thoughts. Really interested. You guys, actually, a lot of the time I read the comments and I go away and I think about it because you make some really valid points when it comes to in-game tactics, what we should have done, what we should do going forward. Let us know in the comment section below. Really appreciate it. Let's keep our chin up and hope that the gaffer adapts for next week and we go into Newcastle and we win the game or we draw the game. But don't ever think to yourself that we can't get anything from these games because we can. Because football doesn't work like that. We're not going to be going and saying, well, we'll beat Brentford. We will beat Bournemouth. We will beat Burnley. We will beat Sunderland. The likelihood is we probably lose one of those games, maybe even 2 of those games, or we drop points. That's why these outlier results are massive. That's why you've got to set up in the best way you can, put the best tools in your box for these games. You've got to do it, got to adapt. Get a point, a scruffy point here, a scruffy point there, which eradicates that 3 points that you might have thought you were going to get, but didn't get against said opposition. Football's not mapped out in that way, everybody, especially for newly promoted teams. Let us know what you think in the comment section.